This is Gridiron Graduates, a weekly podcast covering all things football. Episode number 59, The Halves and the Have-Nots. Recorded February 9th, 2017.
And just like the New England Patriots, we have made the epic comeback. Welcome back, guys. Bill Rossetti, Ian Wharton, GG here, hitting you guys back up on this post-Super Bowl 51 edition of the show. Boy, it's just number one, crazy it's over, and crazy with the game. Oh my goodness gracious. Ian, what's up, man? I'm speechless. I'm still speechless.
Yeah, we're coming up on a week removed and getting ready to close out this season officially. But I'm same with you. I still don't really know what I watched. I rewatched that game the other night, and it was still just unbelievable how that second half happened. I mean, the Falcons had so many opportunities to close things out, offensively and defensively, and I'm sure we'll get into some of that. But I'm really just still in shock, and I'm sorry for Falcons fans that happened, because I just saw it happen with the Indians. I mean, I had the Cavs win it, but I saw that happen with the Indians, where you saw the trains slowly come apart as it was coming around the bend there for the final ride home for the victory, and all of a sudden your world changes in about 20 minutes, and it's just crazy. So, I'm sorry for those fans, but congrats to the Patriots. As much as I don't like saying those words, still have to recognize their greatness and how well they played and they adjusted, and still props to them for making that happen.
Yeah, I just remember just sitting there and just being in utter shock as everything developed, and just thinking, how did this happen? And like I said, we'll get into it a little deeper as the show goes, but just in general, I just had no words. I kept telling everybody throughout the week when we talked about the game, I was like, I have no words. I cannot believe this happened.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's we're getting so used to these comebacks happening, where it was it's 28-3. You get the 8-play drive ending in a touchdown from the Falcons at the to start the second half. It wasn't the first drive, but it was that second drive in the second half. And at that point, you're feeling great if you're the Falcons. It's just 25 points. Never seen a comeback from this. We're rolling offensively. We had the tools to run out this clock. Defensively, they were playing pretty well, but ultimately, the problem was really that they didn't adjust. That at 28-3, they continued to play the same way for the rest of the game, and you can't do that. And Kyle Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, now the head coach of San Francisco 49ers, which congrats to him. I mean, he's a great offensive coordinator, but this was not his best game. I thought he called a good game in the first half. Overall, the Falcons' offense was good, but really they just took advantage of turnovers. They had two scores really gifted to them. One was a pick six, and the other was a fumble in their scoring position. So, it's one of those things where the ball goes a certain way a couple times, and they took advantage, which was huge. That's what you absolutely have to do against the Patriots, because they do it on you. They're just like the Alabama defense from this past year in special teams, where they were able to score defensively or on special teams basically every game of the season, or almost every game of the season, I should say. But you look at that, and you look at the Patriots, and you say the same thing. You have to be able to take advantage of their mistakes, and they gave those opportunities. The Falcons took advantage of all those mistakes the first, I'd probably say, 40 minutes of the game. And after that, it was over in terms of they had the opportunities, but they stopped converting on them.
Yep.
And, you look at the running back situation. Everyone's talked about this ad nauseum. I'm not going to recite the stats, but, people say, the 5 running plays in the second half or after they went up 28-3. I mean, that's kind of misleading. They didn't really have the ball that much. So after they went up 28-3, they had a 3-play drive, a 3-play drive, a 6-play drive, a 4-play drive, and that's it. And the 4-play drive at the end was with 54 seconds to go. So they weren't going to run the ball there. They only had 3 drives after that. And they really went as bad as possible because two of them went for negative yards.
Yep.
3 plays, negative 15 yards, only took up 2 minutes of time. 3 plays, negative 2 yards, a minute and a half. And so, obviously, in hindsight, and Shanahan admitted this, they should have ran the ball. Should have run the ball more. But I don't even think that was honestly their undoing. I think their undoing was simply that Matt Ryan did not play well with the aggressive play calling. And that's not all on Matt Ryan. Alex Mack did not play as well in the second half after he played, I thought, really well in the first half. The offensive line as a whole played all right, but the Patriots were starting to go with smaller defensive fronts, and they were starting to get more pressure on Ryan, and Ryan did not react well to pressure, which has really been one of the main things throughout his career that's really haunted him for much of his career, is that when the play breaks down and he has to improvise or he has to execute under pressure, he really struggles in doing so. Now, for most of this season, he's done a little bit better at that, but when it came down to it most on the biggest stage of his career, unfortunately, it just didn't go his way a couple of times, and it was so close to happening, not even to where the pressure was on him, but defensively they gave up too many of the big plays, too many of the 50-50 balls where this or that could happen. And obviously the Edelman catch is really the one that's going to stick out forever.
Yep.
It may have been the best catch in NFL history. Because really at that point it was almost like, oh man, like if they score here, it's the 2-point conversions are almost a given. It felt like, and it turned out that it was true. That the Patriots had no issues whatsoever on the 2-point conversions. But I mean, what's awful for the Falcons is that they had multiple interception opportunities. They had the ball at the 22-yard line, obviously, first down, or I believe it was first or second down. And if they get a field goal there on that possession before the Patriots go down to tie the game in regulation, it's over. You get 3 points with 4 minutes left and you're up by 11 points, it's over. I mean, for all intents and purposes, sure, they could have scored a touchdown, got the 2, kicked an onside kick with about a minute left, and then go for a field goal. Sure, they could have. It's just extremely unlikely, and even more unlikely than what they had already accomplished. So, I'm sick for them. My stomach hurts for them. If you replay that game 100 times, that's maybe happening one of those times. But that's all it took in this situation. So, I don't really know what the cause of it was outside of Atlanta just not adjusting. And when they had the opportunities, even though they didn't adjust, they continue to shoot themselves in the foot. It's just too many mistakes. You can't take a sack. You can't draw a holding call. Those things kill you. The sacks, 5 sacks on 28 dropbacks. And I'll tell you this, that the offensive protection was not that bad for Atlanta. And New England did a nice job of just rushing 4, spying a linebacker, playing man coverage, and for the most part it worked outside of the amazing Julio catch. But it simply wasn't enough because you had a quarterback taking sacks, and that just absolutely took them out of their rhythm.
And the Julio catch will go down as one of the greatest catches that no one will ever remember.
Yeah, exactly, and really that should have been the dagger. That should have been the moment where it was over.
Because I think
to
that's the
not
drive you're
capitalize
talking
on that.
about, that they're at the 22.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the point where it's like, okay, that's your championship moment. That's where you've now finished it off, and now you just have to do your business, do 3-run plays, and it's easy to say that in hindsight. It really is, but it is true though. I do think at some point it's okay to be really conservative, and if you lose being really conservative, that's tough. I'd rather lose being aggressive, but man, the risk there it showed. It showed, and the Patriots are just so poised. They were rattled in the first half, which is really amazing.
Yeah.
But it just, man, it's still it's mind bending to me. It is still absolutely mind bending that series of events happened. Kyle Shanahan's been so good, so it's almost an incredible shame that it came down to his play calling that's absolutely under the fire from fans, which I understand. I mean, again, it's even if you ask Madden saying run the ball 3 times, you take your 6 yards that you might get, and you take off a minute and a half off the clock, and then you maybe have the Patriots maybe have 3 minutes or so to score 11 points. I mean, you're gonna like your odds in that every single time, even though the Patriots are obviously still the Patriots.
I want to go back to a drive too. You brought up a good point about the Falcons really taking advantage, which they did. That drive where they gave up 3 defensive holdings on 3 straight third downs, and all of a sudden they get the pick 6. I mean, you talk about bailing yourself out and really taking advantage. That right there was the key drive, and that was one of the turning points you had to think, okay, this is where the Falcons are really starting to feel it, because at the very least it felt like it was going to be 14-0, or rather 14-3. All of a sudden it's 21-0.
Yeah.
You're thinking, okay, the Falcons, this is really happening. The Falcons are really starting to feel this. That should have been the turning point, but then second half, even start of the second half, the Falcons are feeling it, but then, all the plays they're on for the defense, and that drive is definitely part of it too, because, 3 times you give up a first down on a defensive holding, so that's 3 times that they should have been off the field. So those plays add up, and you can tell the Falcons were a little bit gassed. The pressure wasn't getting there, and Brady just continued to pick them apart, getting it to James White, just it's really what it came down to for me. I think it's just the big difference in plays run. Because what was it, about 50 more plays I think the Patriots run. I don't care what kind of defense you are. If you're on the field for 90 plays, that's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's part of just what had to happen, was giving that defense some rest. But also, I mean, if they would have played more zone coverage, which they've been a zone coverage team all season long, for them to play, and they did this the entire game. They played cover 1 and cover 2 all game, man coverage. And Brady eventually picked it up, and he made some really tough throws. He made some great throws. And credit to the Falcons where, Jalen Collins positionally was in position most of the night to challenge and to make those throws even closer and make them difficult passes and difficult receptions. He did a good job in coverage, but he was tired. He was so tired. He had a couple of those balls where I think if he was pretty fresh, he might have picked off more passes. He had the opportunity to break on the ball, but he just looked sluggish, as did the rest of the unit. And it's one of those things where, as a coaching staff, I think that you get in this big moment and what's been working this game, and instead of adjusting to what's happened in the last several minutes, you just continue to do what's worked in the bigger picture, which, I mean, it's hard to fault them, but it didn't play to the strengths of the defense. And I would have really liked to have seen, really once it was 28-12, maybe to see them go back to zone and start blitzing a little bit more. Now, the difference is that they thought, okay, let's Let them keep checking down to James White. We can live with that. And they're going to live with, and they were, most offenses and, most defenses are going to be perfectly good with living with that. And they almost still won by giving them up basically everything that James White could possibly get as a receiver, which is, it's a good strategy. I'd rather him kill me than Julian Edelman kill me or Chris Hogan kill me. You can live with those little cuts when you're up by that many points. But the difference just became is that, eventually you had to rattle Brady a little bit more. You had him rattled. And so I think reestablishing that should have been the number one priority. But then again, as I say that, Robert Alford, if he catches that ball, that ends up being an insane catch by Julian Edelman. It's pointless. It's pointless to even talk about because it was over. So at that point, it would have been over. So it's just it is literally a game of just an inch, sometimes even less centimeters, millimeters. I mean, it really can be that. And on this night, it was. I mean, even the Patriots even missed an extra point, which made it even harder for them to come back and tie. They would have won in regulation had that not happened. So, which makes it even crazier. So, it was a good Super Bowl finish. I don't think it was a great game. I didn't think that the commercials were overly good.
I thought they were terrible. I'm sorry. Especially in the first half, I thought they sucked.
Yeah, I almost wonder if these companies are almost just like starting to realize like the return on investment is really poor. So I don't know. I don't know if maybe they're not putting as much into them or what, but they're not funny anymore. They're not really interesting anymore. I don't even remember like a good Mountain Dew or Doritos one, and they usually have like the best ones.
Yeah, especially Doritos.
Yeah, so it was not a great first. I mean, it was a good first half if you didn't want the Patriots to win, but it wasn't really a competitive game. It was just really interesting to see the Patriots play like that. I still don't think the Patriots played like a great game. I don't think Brady was that great. I mean, I know that's going to be sacrilegious to say now because he has 5 rings, but like he should have been picked off probably 4 times, 3 or 4, at least 3 times for sure. So, like that's not a good game. I'm not going to really. I mean, he did play well enough. Obviously, in the second half, he was good, but I don't think it's fair to say that he was like amazing. He did take advantage of several tight windows, and that's what he does. So, it was an okay game from him. He came up big when he needed to, and that's really what matters in all of this is that he helped his team get the win. The defense, to me, for the Patriots, really is what stepped up.
Yep.
And the ability of Bill Belichick and his staff to make those adjustments at halftime, which we knew that they were coming. They always come. They're always coming. But that was obviously the difference in the game. So, props to them. And for Atlanta, the encouraging thing is, not for Atlanta, but this is for Shanahan and the 49ers. He owned up to it today, talked about how he really screwed that up and how he's going to learn from it because they were aggressive all season, and he wanted to. If he said if they were going to lose or go down, they were going to go down aggressive. I respect that mindset. And I think he'll become a better offensive coordinator because of it. Situational football wise, it's the most difficult time to execute, and he didn't quite do so. And it'll be interesting to see, especially with him leaving now, filling that position with Steve Sarkisian, who is, I think he's fairly similar. At least in terms of like concepts and West Coast principles, but it's one of those things, man. It's one of those things that you don't really know until you know. With Sarkisian, like he was running Lane Kiffin's offense, really, even though he was playing play calling. So
yep.
I thought he did a nice job at USC in terms of building the offense too, Sarkisian. So, but I don't know, man. I think it's perfectly fair, and I'm skeptical as far as what he'll do at the NFL level.
And I'm just curious in general with the Falcons, psychologically, how do you recover from something like this? They're obviously a young team, and they've been playing well all season, but that mind frame is just going to stick with them for a long time. And there is a very, very good chance that week 1 they're going to Foxborough. So that's all they're going to hear about, because the NFL is, because now that the possibility is there, the NFL is probably going to take that and run with it. That is
Yeah.
going to be the opening Thursday game next season, Atlanta at New England. So that's all the Falcons will be hearing about, and all they'll be thinking about going up to, no matter when that game is. But I'm sure they'd rather it be week 1 so they can get it out of the way. But like I said, to me, psychologically, I'm really curious to watch how they recover from this. Because we all know about the Super Bowl hangover, from all the losers. We saw it happen with the Panthers. So I don't know. It's and with Dallas obviously going to be up there. Green Bay's going to be up there. Seattle's going to be up there. It's going to be, and obviously the target's on their back now in the NFC.
Yeah.
So it's, boy, to me, I don't know. I don't know what to make of them right now. I really don't. Like, again, on paper and with the roster, it looks good. But just the thought of knowing that they were that close to being world champions and they let it slip away, that's going to haunt them, at least to me. And until they prove me wrong, I just don't know how they're going to bounce back from this. I'm not saying they're going to be like bad next year. Like, I'm seeing some people saying like 5-11. I don't think they're going to be that bad.
No, I don't understand how they would jump back that much. I mean, it doesn't look like it's an extremely loaded roster, but it's a young roster, and I think that's why people don't trust it. It's why I didn't trust it. But as the season went along, it's like, hey, you know what? At some point, it's just like they are fast, they're physical, and they enforce, their will on an offense. And don't forget, too, they're going to get Desmond Trufant back as well.
Yeah.
That Super Bowl's a different game if they have Desmond Trufant. Like, he's a top 5 corner in the NFL easily. So, I mean, it's going to be good for them if they can get him back 100%, which is expected. But then also, if they can possibly land maybe a free agent or two, they only have 3 starters hitting free agency, and I think 2 of them are upgradable. The right guard, Chris Chester, and then defensive tackle, Babineau. Those are guys that are probably below average starters. So this is a team that can get a lot better.
Mm-hmm. And, it was nice to see Grady Jarrett having sort of a coming out party in the Super Bowl with the 3 sacks. So he'll be ready to go next year. So we'll see. I do want to. There was a point I want to make. We talked about Brady briefly earlier, and again, credit to him, great game, but obviously when you're down to, and I'm gonna play. I'll start this by saying I'm playing devil's advocate here. So, but when you're down 25, obviously you're going to throw a lot. And that led to Brady putting up the stats that he did. Completing, 42 passes, I think, out of 60-some for 466 yards. I mean, that's bound to happen. Now, obviously you have to complete the passes, so credit to Brady there. So, you take it one way, or however you want to take it. That's why numbers are always fascinating and can be finicky as well, because you can always spin them into whatever argument you want to make. You could say, yeah, he put up 466 yards, greatest Super Bowl performance ever. How fitting too that the man who previously held the top 3 passing yards gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, or gets selected for the Hall of Fame, and the next day he loses his record. But just a shout out there. Congrats to Kurt Warner and the rest of the Hall of Fame class. I think it's a tremendous class, except for the fact that Terrell Owens isn't in there. But that's a debate for another time.
Well, no, I mean, that's actually a good idea to look at the Hall of Fame class. I mean, if you want to. I mean,
No, we
that's
could. Yeah, we could talk about it a little bit. Absolutely, because it's a
yeah,
fantastic class.
yeah, it is, and I'm with you though. I mean, I really don't understand how Terrell Owens didn't get in. I mean, this is to me definitely a top 5 wide receiver of all time. I honestly think he's the third best receiver. It's a little bit difficult because going cross eras, statistics are not going to hold up, and I don't think statistics are always the number one way to judge a player. But generally speaking, great players have good stats. Um, but I'm looking at Owens here, and I think he's right behind Moss and Jerry Rice.
Yep, I agree.
And now people can talk about off the field. Listen, people didn't like his personality. I get that. He rubbed people the wrong way. I get that. You can't tell me that every team he was on didn't get better with him on it. They weren't a better offense with him on it. I mean,
I know one writer that thinks that.
yeah, and I mean, I saw it. I think it's unfortunate um, that people are projecting their personal feelings toward him as a person as to who he is as a player. He was a dominant player.
Yep.
Um,
Hashtag wide receiver wins.
yeah, yeah, right.
That's what it basically came down to.
Yeah, exactly. So, I just feel bad for him. There's some really good classes coming up. 2018 is especially loaded.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope he can get in soon. I think it's unfair to punish him. There's a lot of guys in there that probably aren't great people. And, in fairness to T.O., it's not like this is a situation where it's, he's out there committing crimes. He's not. He was a dick. He was a jerk to people. And you know what? Sometimes you have that with great athletes that are highly competitive and are the alpha male of the alpha males. That's to me what he was. Did I always like what he had to say? No. Do I think he went about it the right way? Not particularly. A lot of his complaints, sometimes I thought, you know what? Yeah, man, maybe you should just keep that in house. But at the end of the day, he was still a fantastic player, and you would take him on your team 10 out of 10 times. I mean, you'd be crazy not to. So, he had baggage, but he also wasn't. It's not like he was a criminal. Like, people make him out to be like some terrible dude. No, he was just a competitive guy that didn't really know how to channel that in a more constructive way.
Yep.
So I thought that's a shame. But otherwise, though, I was really happy to see Danian Tomlinson get in. Obviously, Jason Taylor. I thought that was really awesome for him to get in on his first ballot.
Yeah.
Did not actually expect that, just because it tends to be difficult, I think, for defensive ends sometimes. There's still some guys on the waiting list that are well accomplished that have never gotten in. So, as far as edge rushers, so I'm pretty surprised actually that a guy like Terrell Davis got in. Only in the fact that he had a great stretch of like 4 or 5 years, and then that was it. But I don't disagree with it really, because I think if you were a great player and you had a dominant couple years, and then injuries happen, if you were that good over those couple of years, I think that's fair. So I'm happy for him. I was just surprised that he got in over T.O.
Yeah. And Kurt Warner, I'm definitely happy for too. It's almost like he had to wait his turn because we knew he wasn't getting in last year with Brett Favre on the ballot. So, but at least this year he finally gets his time to shine, and it's well deserved too. One of the greatest quarterbacks of our era. One of very few quarterbacks, I don't remember the number offhand, to lead 2 franchises to the Super Bowl, and nearly won Super Bowls with both of them. If it wasn't for the Steelers just marching the field at the end of the game, the Cardinals win that Super Bowl. And yeah, like you said, LaDainian Tomlinson. It's just crazy though too, man. That it makes us feel old. That these are guys that we pretty much grew up watching now, and now they're getting elected into the Hall of Fame. And you look at next year, Ray Lewis is eligible, Randy Moss is eligible, and that's another reason why I'm really surprised they didn't put Owens in, and they really put Owens in a precarious position now, because now he's got to go up against Randy Moss next year.
Yeah.
Is there room for both of them to get in on the same ballot, or is someone going to have to wait till at least 2019?
Yeah, and I mean, and the further that we go on, I would have to bring it up again, but I remember seeing there's basically 1 year where I think there's only going to be like 3 guys, I think, with a good chance to get in. I think it's 2019 is the year where like 3 guys that become eligible are probably shoe-ins, but that leaves 2 potentially repeat types to make it. And I mean, come on, I mean, are we really going to make this guy wait until 2019 to get him in the Hall? I mean, I just think it's really unfortunate. That dude is absolutely deserving of this, and I think it's almost like baseball's Hall of Fame, and I think that's really more of a joke Hall of Fame if you compare it, because the way that they hold grudges for like the HGH era and steroid era, their personal vendettas with these players, I just think it's unfortunate. Like, we shouldn't be rewarding players because they were a nice guy. Like, that's not what Pro Football Hall of Fame is about. If you want nice guys, then make a nice guy Hall of Fame. Make a gritty, high character Hall of Fame. That's not what this is. Like, you're gonna get personalities in there sometimes, and I think that's okay.
I'm just trying to bring up some of the future classes here. Again, so we talked about next year. 2019, Tony Gonzalez is eligible. Ed Reed is eligible. Gonzalez, I think, is probably going to get in.
Yeah,
I'm trying
I would
to,
think.
because I mean, he's only one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history. So I can't really find it right now. I know there was an article somewhere, but I can't find it right now. So, I mean, offhand, I know obviously 2021 is going to be the big one, because you've got Peyton Manning, you've got Calvin Johnson, you've got Marshawn Lynch, you've got Jared Allen. So that's going to be a pretty loaded field. So a lot of good names, and again, it goes back to, these are players that we actually were watching now, and now we're seeing them enshrined in the Hall of Fame, and it's like, wow, we feel old now, and we're gonna feel really old once Peyton Manning gets in.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, you're gonna see all these guys that we grew up with, and LT was definitely one of my favorites growing up.
Yep.
I'm sure you were a big T.O. fan, at least while he was, on the Eagles.
Yeah, that was the best time, that 2004 season.
Those were really great times, man. And it is. You're right. It's gonna be really weird once I think Manning goes in. I think Manning's gonna be the one that really feels probably like the weirdest, just because it was strange not watching him on the field this year.
Yep.
So, like, to then be a few years removed from that even more is just going to be, I think, even more like eye-opening. So just, it's just fun to enjoy and try to soak up the moments while we have them.
I'll say this too. I will be so excited if and when Brian Dawkins gets in. Because he was my favorite player growing up. So I would really love to see him get in. Hell, I'd maybe go to Canton and go to the enshrinement ceremony live if he ever gets in, just to say that I was there for Brian Dawkins. So, here's hoping. A lot of people thought he should have got in this year, but hey, Morton Anderson got in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, God, I still can't believe that. It's not even like he was like, I just don't know, man. I don't know about special teams players. Like, I think they belong in. This is where I think they should just get rid of like the limit of 5.
Yeah.
Just let up to like 10 get in. Allow them to catch up a little bit. If they can catch up, that would significantly help, as they just have a backlog of these guys that should be getting in. So, oh man, it kills me to see a kicker get in over freaking Terrell Owens. That's just crazy talk to me. And I'm not saying that Anderson doesn't deserve it. I think Reggie Roby deserves to get in. I think Shane Leckler will have an argument. Adam Vinatieri will have an argument. Like there's reason to believe like these guys should get in. It's just one of those things where it's like, how are you putting him in over an all-time playmaker? You know, those two things aren't equal.
That's and the crazy thing is there's only so many voters that do this, so it's not like we even have to look very far to find, you know, the brains to pick on who got in. It's not like the Baseball Hall of Fame where you have like 500 people voting. This is only like 40 people, if that. So 40, 50 people. But it is what it is. So here's hoping next year T.O. and Randy Moss get in so we don't have another wide receiver logjam that we had once before.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, there really is not much else that's come out.
Yeah.
You know, Kyle Shanahan did take the job officially. John Lynch is the GM for San Francisco, and we'll see how that stuff works out. You know, I think they need to rebuild that roster from the ground up, and they seem to understand that in their press conference. That they both mentioned that they're going to try to get, you know, physical football players. I mean, it's a lot of the jargon stuff that we normally hear, and that's to be expected. I'm interested to see it. You know, I don't know about John Lynch as a GM, but it sounds like he's trying to hire some experienced guys, and I tell you, I mean, he was a great player, and obviously we know that he's a Hall of Fame candidate, and you know, he has at least been involved in football in the last couple of years, not on like the personnel side, but at least being on like the entertainment side.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's like, it's not ideal, but it's not, at least he wasn't just out of football. Like, he's been watching teams, he's been working with coaches, I'm sure. You know, you meet with coaches and stuff throughout the week. Like, I think that's a good thing to see from another perspective. I'm rooting for the guy. I was a fan of his as a player, so I hope he has success. He was one of the reasons why I'm into defensive backs so much. I love Kyle Shanahan. I think Shanahan will either be wonderful or he'll be terrible there. And I'm okay with that risk. I hope he succeeds, though. They have a massive project on their hands, but at least they're armed with a lot of assets to get this better. I did a mock on my Twitter last night through Fanspeak, and you know, I aggressively attacked talent. I'm team talent. I want good players on my team. You know, when you have a team this young and this bad, I just think you just need to take the best players that you can find. I really don't think you have to worry too much. It's like, oh, well, we already have DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead, so we can't take Malik McDowell in the second round, or Carl Lawson in the third round or second round, or, you know, wherever it is. If that's your best rated guy, just go get him. Like, go get your premium positions, go get your superstars at edge rusher, cornerback, quarterback, and, you know, the trenches. Defensive tackle, offensive tackle. You know, if you can get superstars there on rookie contracts, you're going to be a very good team quickly. And you're going to be affordable while you're doing it, too. So that's how you sustain success. And so, you know, I'm pulling for this team just because, you know, I like that the people that they've brought in. And it's always kind of cool to see these teams get built up over time. So it's a multi-year project. Those guys both have 6-year contracts. I hope they're given at least 4 years. I think it's going to take, honestly, 3 or 4 years for them to start being a real contender. and that's a long time. So you guys are going to have patience with them, and hopefully they continue to show good things early and throughout their careers, and then they can learn from their mistakes early as well.
Yeah, I think that was the key points there too. Like you said, they hired a bunch of other strong football people to kind of help out with John Lynch, and the fact that both Lynch and Shanahan got 6-year contracts, so they know that they've got a project ahead of them. So at least they're giving them the time, or at least hopefully they give them the time to build this team back up and get them back into position in the NFC West. So should be interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think that'll wrap it up. I think that was a nice little way to wrap up the season. Our second season together is officially in the books. Our second playing season, I should say. Next time, of course, we'll start up on all the fun off-season stuff. We obviously know the draft order now, so we can start talking about that a bit. Free agency is in a month. Actually, exactly 1 month from the night we're recording this. So by the time you guys listen to this, it'll be less than a month, which sounds even better. Less than a month till free agency. Combine's coming up, so a lot of good stuff coming up. So we'll be here talking about it, breaking it down, and having some fun. And hope you guys will join us for the ride and enjoy it. So until next time, thanks again, everyone, so much for listening all this time and enjoying these last couple seasons with us. We'll be back and better as always, and ready to share some fun with you guys. So for Ian Wharton at NFL Film Study, remember to check out his draft guide when it comes out. He's hoping around April 1st still, around the target date.
Yeah. I've got about 70 players left to watch, and we've got about I have about like 70 so players. We've got about 50 or so days until April 1st at the time of recording. So I've got some work to do, but I've been doing really well, and pretty excited to continue working on it. I'm really liking what I'm putting together so far, and I think you guys will too.
Awesome. So for Ian, I'm Bill Rossetti. Thanks so much for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time right here on GG. Take care, my friends.